Could barely even hear that massive FedEx truck and motorcycle I just saw go by out the window over the pleasant sounds of ocean waves and seagulls crying. Hello, Ellen. Ellen, I hope you don't mind if I credit you as one of my apprentices in the description. It's just a convenient way to get to link to your Blue Sky and Harpy story. Well, I see a bunch of hearts and 100s. I assume that's you giving approval over there in the chat, because I don't know who else is here even. Incomprehensible madness, caught in its subjectivity indeed. Not at all, I quite like that in fact. Good, good. Hello, Rocky. Is it Racky or Rocky? Because I always assume, like, Rocky, like, you know, the, how it's, like, isn't that a character from, Haibane Renmei? Rocky the robot guy. Your artwork is fucking incredible. Hello, CC. I feel like, I don't remember if we showed it on stream or not, but that one drawing you did in the We Post Art chat on Golden Butterflies, it's really good. Based off an old Bionicle faction. I see. The Rocky name, I assume you mean. Okay, I get you. Okay. I really do not love how quickly it plays that song. I would love it if it let you sit and listen to the seagulls like a lot longer before you had to listen to that again. Is there anything I need to look at before we jump into the chapter? Like, did I forget to read anything that I'm supposed to have? Or is it good to just jump on in? Unlock? What? Remove the lock on this episode. If you do not progress to the episodes in the right order, you will probably be confused and lose interest. We strongly recommend that only those who have played the previous episodes use this feature. I didn't even realize that was a feature. The blurb for episode 3 I didn't read. Oh yeah, that's right. Good morning. This is a surprise that even oh no. Let me unfuck my voice real quick. Good morning. This is a surprise that even now you do not surrender. The Golden Witch has exceedingly high expectations of you. Have you perhaps also come to realize the structure of this world? There can be no victory without knowing the rules. Please enjoy a hearty game with the witch. The difficulty level is fair. Fair for you, and fair for the witch. Somehow that doesn't sound fair. But I guess maybe it is. It is truly pleasing when everything gets so lively. How boring were those days when I was trapped alone on this island, unable to regain my power and without anyone to talk to. This feels like a weirdly pertinent moment to have picked back up on, where I'm like, wow, she just said exactly what I'm feeling in this moment. That's weird. Okay. I get how that creepy-ass guy is really fitting as your butler. But tell me, why has that butler only appeared now? You said something about how only the goats and the 7 steak chicks had manifested themselves. What did that mean? Yes. You still fight it, but I am a fully fledged witch. I am in contact with a good many non-human entities in the netherworld. I'm sure. None of your contacts are halfway near decent. First some goat monsters, then those sexy-ass babes, and this time a demon butler showed up? I don't want to say it, but there better not be more and more of these weird guys to come. Oh, there's plenty of weird guys to come. How's the audio for y'all? Does this sound... is the audio balance good? How much furniture do you think I have serving at my great golden mansion? How many demons do you think visit me there? They will keep coming. They will appear in any number. When the door to the Golden Land is opened, I will call back all of my furniture and build my new castle here on Rokenjima. Then I plan to invite all of my old friends, and we will drink and dance together for 3 days and 3 nights. I do also plan to invite Kinzo's family, of course. You too, if you wish. She gonna eat them. So let me get this straight. Since you'd lost your power for a long time, you couldn't summon them. And your magic power has been recovering gradually, so you've become able to summon more and more monsters. Is that what you're trying to say? It is as you say. You have managed to avoid taking that final step off the cliff, but your heart is already wavering and you are unable to deny that I am a witch. That wavering in your heart has slightly restored my power as a witch. So are you saying that creepy butler appeared because I started to surrender? She is exactly like Santa Claus in the movie Elf. Move up the game audio a bit. How about that? That's right. Bit by bit, you are surrendering to me. You submitted to me so much in the last game that you received all of that humiliation, did you not? Your back was truly pleasant for throwing my feet up on, I'll have you know. Damn it. I thought that as long as I didn't accept you, I'd be able to keep going. But it seems apparently I was mistaken. That's right. The closer you get to submitting, the more the game will swing in my favor. Isn't chess the same? In the process of cornering each other's kings, we have traded several pieces. It is true that I have yet to corner your king. However, you have your hands full just enabling your king to escape, and have lost several important pieces to me, and conceded a large advantage. It is only natural that further advances will lean in my favor. Damn. As we continue, you will probably still succeed in frantically avoiding my checkmates, if nothing else. However, as you do, I will steal your important pieces from you one by one. In the end, you will have lost everything but your king, and you will receive a true checkmate, from which you will be denied any form of escape. You were talking big last time, weren't you? Something about how, since you would never accept me, this would be eternal torture that would torment me? Only witches who have reached the endless level can talk about eternity. You have never possessed that qualification. I love her so fucking much.
Kinzo-sama has already publicly displayed the location of the hidden gold within the epitaph under my portrait. The rules apply equally to all who can read the epitaph. If you discover the gold, I shall return everything to you. Tonight, I ask that you enjoy your battle of wits with Kinzo-sama to the fullest. I sincerely pray that this night will be both intellectual and elegant. Beatrice the Golden.
When Maria finished reading the letter that Beatrice had handed her, everyone was at a loss for words for a while, and then they all broke the silence at once.
Ridiculous! What a worthless, vicious prank!
I agree wholeheartedly. There is no way that father would give up the head's ring. Beatrice? Ha! What a transparent prank, hoping that bringing up that name will have us running around like headless chickens. Come on, who's the one behind this dessert packing a little too much punch? I'll applaud and admire if you come down. I'll applaud and admire you if you come clean now. Rosa?
Of course not. I wouldn't pull a prank assuming father's name.
Then Aniki? Aniki?
Me? Don't be absurd. It was you, wasn't it? Only you could plan something this vulgar.
Are you trying to mock me? I'm the one who wants to question you. Who is behind this ill-natured prank?
Kraus beat the table and stared at everyone. Since that incident, the children too, he scared them greatly. Since that included,
A letter from a mysterious person who claims to have been given full rights to father's assets. And if you think about how this family conference is all about discussing that, I think it's too hasty to call this just a prank.
I wouldn't be so sure. It really might be one of Father's vulgar pranks. He might have planned this to shock us a bit since we've been discussing the distribution of his inheritance without him.
If Dad was the one who planned this, then we can't take what Maria-chan just read out loud as a joke, right?
That's right. If you interrupt the contents If you interpret the contents literally, then this is a test from Father. The epitaph of the witch has been displayed in the hall for quite some time now, so that any one of us could solve it. There was plenty of notice. So he's saying that the first person to solve it will be handed the headship along with all of his wealth, right?
See? Our magic worked!
who the hell's voice was that? Oh, that's Youth Ava's voice.
Ridiculous! There's nothing of the sort. It is an unshakable fact that my husband will become the successor to the Ushiromiya family headship. This letter is the very thing that shakes it. This letter is a message from the person who was given full rights to all of Father's wealth. Nissan's right to become the head has returned to a blank slate. The person who solves the riddle, the person who finds Beatrice's gold, will become the next head of the Ushiromiya family.
Ludicrous. Are you going to trust the meaningless words in that letter?
Good to have you here, OTDL. Said you've been watching the Umineko VODs, but this is the first time you caught it live. This is the first time I've done it early in the day. I'm realizing that maybe my ability to read gets better throughout the day when I've done a lot of reading, because I'm like, man, I keep missing the words in this. I'm also trying to remember all the voices I have for these.
Ludicrous. Are you trying to trust the meaningless words in that letter? That the seal was the real thing? How can we possibly trust that?
Then let's try to go ask Father directly. We aren't at the level where you can get away with saying that his mood's bad or that he's not feeling well, you know. The sealed wax clearly shows that this letter was from Father's representative. If you doubt that, then show some proof, Nissan. Proof that this letter is not an expression of Father's wishes.
Very well. It is just as you say. It no longer matters whether Dad's in a good mood or not. Let us go up and ask him directly. Let's do it. We'll ask Dad directly. Dad is to blame here too. Why did he have to choose such a roundabout way? Well, that is a little like him.
I wonder if it's alright to talk like that, taking it for granted that is Father's letter. Stupid Rosa! Isn't it obviously Father's letter? That letter was Father's! Isn't it obvious that he's giving the four of us an even chance to become the successor? Idiot, die, you useless woman!
God damn. You know what? I just realized the family dynamic in this show is shockingly similar to that in the HBO show The Righteous Gemstones, which is like a comedy, but like a very dark comedy about a megachurch owner and his family, and they're like ridiculously rich, and they have a pretty similar dynamics to this family. It's a lot funnier. This game can be funny, but that show is fucking hilarious. But I thought about that because the way Ava's character manipulates her sister is like just like Danny McBride's character in that show, who also wrote and directed that show. So
Rosa really is dumb. Why doesn't she just give up and die forever?
I'm sorry. That's right. I'm sorry.
in the beginning, the adults had all doubted the authenticity of the letter, but after just now realizing that this was once in a lifetime chance for the three siblings other than Kraus in the struggle for the inheritance, Ava had changed her position and had claimed that the letter was authentic. Rudolph and Rosa also realized that and agreed.
Good gracious! How could adults like you take such a worthless prank this seriously? Even though I am not father, I understand well his exasperation.
Whoa. Nazi-san, won't everything be fine if we just ask Father? Everything will be fine if Father simply mentions that he doesn't know about the letter.
Nisan, take responsibility and just get him to say that he doesn't know about the letter. This isn't a time to get scared just because he's in a bad mood, you know.
He's still scared of Father at his age. What an idiot. Why doesn't he just give up and die forever?
Right. Let's get this situation painted in black and white. He's probably eating in his study right now. I think it's time we had him rest his chopsticks for a moment. It's decided. Let's go. Kirie, wait here for a while. We'll go check whether it's true or not and come back quickly.
Thank you. I will wait patiently for Goda-san to bring dessert.
The four siblings, Natsuki and Hideyoshi, all stood from their seats forcefully and flew out into the hallway with a clatter. Afterwards, the only ones left were the children, stunned, completely speechless, Nanjo, who looked uncomfortable, and Kirie, shrugging her shoulders. She always do be shrugging her shoulders. Ava really went the fuck in on on Maria there. Maria, who had been at the center of all this turmoil, looked a little scared at the adult's sudden change. However, judging from her appearance, she didn't look like she realized the full significance of what she had just read out.
What in the world was all that about? I don't friggin' get it.
Shitheads, every last one of them. Do they really want the inheritance that much? Yes. Everyone, this is our parents' problem. It has nothing to do with us. So you mustn't worry about it. Yeah, if only it was that easy. They were so blatantly.
I thought they were better than this.
No, you didn't.
Showing off their greed.
Everyone has to believe together we'll be happy.
Agreed, Maria. Head pats for Maria. That's right. We all did promise. Come on, Battler-kun, Jessica-chan, you too.
I feel like crap.
We couldn't accept it at all, but we laid down our arms for the time being. We had known vaguely how filthy the family conference was going to be this time. However, after that 6-year blank, I couldn't help being shocked. CC says wishing Rosa the worst. I mean, fair. This is how she got that way, though. Seeing that the children were completely dejected, Dr. Nanjo cleared his throat uncomfortably.
It's an adult discussion. It has nothing to do with all of you young people. Let us forget about it.
What if I could, okay? I know that it's hard on you, but please forget it for now, for their sakes. All of your parents are fighting frantically to make your futures just a little brighter.
Yeah, that's definitely what they're thinking about.
Please,
More like they're trying to fucking unfuck their failures.
please don't look at your injured parents with those cold eyes when they come back.
Even on your request, Kirie-san, that's a hard one.
If we could be that cut and dried about it, we wouldn't be kids in the first place.
Everyone happy! Get dark!
It's raining, Maria. It's dark.
happiness will get away.
I made a song about this. Yeah, Catalyst. If you stop believing it, it cannot be saved. Your relationship, your government, even your brain. Craving honesty is honestly such a waste. You couldn't ascertain the truth. That's a very Beatrice-coded song, I guess.
We all have to believe.
That sounds good. I'll believe it too. We can be happy.
Auntie Kyrie, thank you. Violet and Jessica and Nichan, you believe too. Beatrice is always saying that magic won't have any power if you don't believe.
Kyrie-san rose from her seat quietly, went over to Maria, and crouched down so that their eyes met.
You believed, Auntie Kyrie. Now Violet and Jessica and Nichan have to believe.
They're both strong people. They'll feel better soon and do that for you.
Yeah.
More importantly, I want you to tell me.
When Kyrie-san said that, Jessica, George Aniki, Dr. Ananjo, and I all listened closely. It looked like our parents' minds had been filled by thoughts of grandfather and the inheritance problem, but we wanted to ask Maria about something simpler.
What?
Who gave you that letter, Maria-chan?
Beatrice!
The witch drawn in that portrait?
She gave me this letter and an umbrella. And she used magic to fix my rose that was broken. Beatrice is an awesome witch who can do anything.
Could you tell us about it in a bit more detail?
Uh-oh. What's up, Negi Springfield? How's the having 30 bitches going? Every time I see your name, I'm just like cracked up that somebody is like that name still exists in 2025. I feel like Negima is a relic, like a true relic. People don't realize that shit was like the most popular fucking manga in otaku circles for like a decade, and nobody talks about it anymore at all. Happy Pride, I guess. Is it? Wait, is it Pride Month? I fucking completely forgot. I totally forgot. It's Pride in your city today. Says Mayday from space. Hell yeah. Okay, that's what you're responding to. No, Pride Month is next month, right? I gotta be ready for it this time. Last year it snuck up on me and I didn't do any fucking prep and it snuck up on me. I don't know what city you're in, but it's cool that they have a Pride today. I've only ever been to Pride once, and it was in Kansas City, Missouri. And it was pretty cool. I had a good time. I think that's it's the only time I've went, but it was neat. There was a lot of beautiful, beautiful trans people walking around, making me go, damn, I gotta buy more clothes. I need cooler clothes. I heard that in the end our parents were unable to get grandfather to respond. Well, I'm not sure I should be saying this, but I feel like grandfather deserves a pat on the back. Yeah, this time... He had to be feeling pretty satisfied with the shock his strange letter had given to his children, who had all been so infatuated with distributing the inheritance while he was still alive. I, too, felt like our despicable parents had gotten what they deserved in all of this confusion. But I couldn't really say that I was feeling great. I felt all sulky. Grandfather... That's such a sentence. I felt all sulky. Grandfather hadn't entertained them for a moment, but he also apparently hadn't denied anything about the letter. Where the fuck did that come from? It's my mom. Would my mom be texting me? Are your friends okay? There were tornadoes in Kentucky last night. I will ask. Okay, let's make sure Riley and Mint are okay. My mom asked if y'all got killed by a tornado. I texted that to Riley. We'll see what he says. I'm gonna assume not, but I don't think tornadoes usually. Could it be hurricane season? Not even close, funnily enough. I really doubt the part of Kentucky they live in would get tornadoes, because they live in the mountains, and I think the tornadoes happen more so out to the west in like the more plainsy area. Eastern Kentucky is the Appalachians, so it's hard for me to imagine a tornado coming up in there. Okay, anyway. Grandfather's name pops up several times in the witch's letter. If Grandfather knew that someone was stealing his name, then considering his character, he would probably be mad with rage. But even though Grandfather now knew the contents of that letter, he had coolly ignored it. In this case, did that count as a silent yes? Auntie Ava and Dad had been trying to interpret the letter in their favor, their greed clearly visible. It wouldn't have mattered so much if that was all, but the adults had then started focusing on Maria, who had received the letter. They kept pounding her with questions about who had given her that letter. Maria repeated over and over again that she had gotten it from Beatrice, but there was no way a mysterious person like that could be mixed in with the others on this island. After all, this is a small island where no one lives except for the Ushiromiya family. Maria kept repeating that she had gotten it from Beatrice no matter how many times she was asked. It seemed that the adults felt that she was trying to trick them, so they didn't hold back and questioned her until she broke out in tears. By the time Maria was released, she had cried herself to the point of exhaustion. Our parents ordered us to go to the guest house and take Maria with us, then shut themselves up in the dining hall and started getting louder and louder as they discussed the inheritance. It seemed that because of that strange letter, the possibility had arisen that Uncle Krause's ability to become the next head could be returned to a blank slate, and in exchange for accepting him, my dad and the rest were trying to swindle Uncle Krause out of a lot of money, or something like that. Yeah, if you don't understand what's happening in this scene, really, see Chapter 1. I do really appreciate that the game at this point is like, we know you remember what happened in Chapters 1 and 2. Like, we went over a lot of the same things, so we're not going to go over them a third time, but we will make sure you remember some of this stuff is still relevant, you know? Jessica and I, both astonished, were happy to move over to the guest house. We didn't want to be under the same roof as those filthy adults, their heads so filled with thoughts about money. George Aniki pleaded on behalf of our parents, saying that he wanted us to understand them. I understood his reasoning. No matter how filthy this talk of money was, it wouldn't go away if you just closed your eyes to it. But even so, how could they be so blatantly degenerate into such money-grubbing demons? Maria had cried herself dry and was hiding in her bed. She hadn't even twitched for a while, so she was probably sleeping. Who in the world gave that letter to Maria-chan?
George Nissan, you mustn't ask that anymore. If Maria says she got it from Beatrice, can't we just leave it at that?
I mean, we don't want to make her cry any more than this. That said, even we felt a confusion that we couldn't clear away. There are only 18 people on this island now. The thought that in the middle of all this rain, an unknown 19th person gave Maria-chan that letter and is now hiding somewhere honestly doesn't seem realistic at all.
Probably Shannon or someone put on the dress from that portrait and skillfully planned this ahead of time with Maria? Although, of course, as soon as Maria saw that dress, that might have been enough on its own to convince her that it was Beatrice.
Maybe it doesn't really... That's the wrong voice. Maybe it doesn't really matter who handed her the letter. The important thing is who sent it. The point is that Grandfather wanted to cause an uproar by assuming the name of the witch. Seriously, that old geezer's good at riling people up. The truth was probably that our occult-loving grandfather was playing around by choosing a dramatic way of handing the letter over to Maria, who shared the same hobby as he did. paying no heed, though, to the trouble it would cause Maria or the rest of us. Seriously, messing around with Maria's pure heart? It doesn't matter who handed the letter over. Maria says that she got it from Beatrice, so let's treat it that way. I agree. Let's do that. To Maria-chan, Beatrice is kinda like what Santa Claus is to most kids. Literally, she functions the same way as Santa Claus in Elf. Whether it be a non-existent 19th person or Santa Claus, as long as we accept that they exist, they will at least exist inside Maria. I see, it's important to lie to a child to protect their dreams. This includes your inner child. Huh? What's up, Jessica? Are you still angry? Jessica had her hand on her chin, as though there was something that she just couldn't understand. When I called out to her, she came to her senses.
Sorry. Well, actually, I was wondering if it was possible that Maria actually met Beatrice.
What do you mean by that? Are you saying that there's a 19th person on this island? If we take what Maria-chan said to heart, then we do arrive at that answer.
No, that's not what I mean. I'm talking about the story that someone we don't know has been living on the island since long ago.
Living, you say? Where?
In the forest.
I like that little bass rumbly sound. The adults were gathered in the dining hall, spending a very long time continuing the discussion that had been started by Beatrice's letter. Kraus strongly claimed that the letter was a simple prank, but he couldn't overturn the claim that Kinzo's failure to deny the letter was answer enough. Judging by Kinzo's character, if he knew that a letter had been written by someone else in his name, he would be mad with rage. Since all of the siblings knew that, Kraus had no choice but to withdraw his claim. At death's door. Without even having to summarize it, the contents of the letter were simple. The person who solved the witch's epitaph would receive the headship and assets. This did a lot of damage to Kraus, who was thought to have been guaranteed the succession, and for everyone else who had given up on that long ago, it was better news than they could have ever hoped for. However, there were some points that worried them. The person who solved the epitaph was not limited to a member of the Ushiromiya family. Taken literally, anyone, no matter how doubtful their origin, could succeed the Ushiromiya family. And furthermore, this meant there was a chance that all of the Ushiromiya family's assets could be stolen by some unknown person. In that sense, it was definitely not a situation where anyone could lower their guard, even the siblings other than Kraus. Had this letter come from a saboteur sent by Kinzo who called themselves Beatrice? Or was this the scheme of some unknown person trying to steal the Ushiromiya family's wealth? They still didn't know the truth, but they could say one thing for certain. Maria had received this problematic letter, today, on this island. In other words, someone who was planning something related to that letter was on this island today. Was the person who set it up Kinzo, one of the 4 siblings, or maybe some unknown person? No matter how much they suspected each other, they couldn't reach a conclusion. After getting tired of bickering with each other, they finally reached the extremely obvious conclusion that doubting each other was just a waste of time. We've made no progress. We've just been wasting time.
That's right. Now that you realized it, we don't have to waste so much. It is not certain that Father is the one who sent the letter. My husband has merely had enough of you being unable to understand. Which one of us can't hold a conversation? You keep yelling at me every time I say something. Do you truly think that such shameful behavior is fitting for a member of the Ushiromiya family?
Give it a rest, Ava. You too, Natsu-san. That topic's finished for now.
Shall we cool our heads off for now? Let's have some cool drinks brought over.
That sounds good. It would probably be wiser if we cooled our heads. Baby, don't you want to go for a smoke, too?
Aniki looks like she's in a bad mood, so I'll pass on that smoke. But I agree about the cool drinks. Rosa, have someone bring some water. A whole pitcher.
Alright.
Rosa headed over to the extension telephone in the corner of the room and called the servant room. She then passed on what Rudolph had told her to the person on the other end. The vicious bickering up until now vanished like it had never happened. That silence continued until Goda finished setting the table and retreated from the room. Is there anything else that you require?
No. Please leave us.
Yes. Then if you'll excuse me, if you need anything, call me at any time. Fucking bitch. After listening to the sound of Goda's footsteps disappear off into the distance, everyone took a deep breath at the same time to break the tension.
It sure is raining hard. I wonder if our witch, this 19th person, is taking shelter in the arbor in the rose garden about now. I wonder. They might be able to avoid the rain, but it would be quite cold.
A mysterious 19th visitor. Sounds pretty interesting, just like a mystery novel. Normally, in that kind of story, it's a safe bet that the person doesn't exist, that one of us, 18, would be faking it.
I suspect Genji and the others. We should have found any excuse we could to dismiss all the servants of the one-winged eagle.
Come now, don't say that. We must be grateful for their long years of service. Of course, we can't let our guard down.
So then you also agree that whether or not Father was behind this, the person who handed Maria-chan the letter was a servant?
Indeed. After all, we were all being friendly in our own big happy circle the whole time until dinner, weren't we? All of us siblings have alibis. Only a servant could have handed Maria that letter.
But all of the servants said that they were too busy with the bed making to have any spare time during which they could have gone to Maria in the rose garden.
Hey, what are you trying to say then? You aren't saying that the witch of the forest, Beatrice... God damn it, I hit the fucking...
Rosa, you used to believe so much that it really frightened you, right? You don't mean to say that you still believe at this age? The witch of the forest?
If she did exist...
If she did exist, I'd love for her to appear. But no matter how much I wished, she didn't appear before me even once. She didn't save me from my crisis. Of course not. I just thought that since all 18 of us said that we didn't do it, there might really be a 19th person.
That can't be. In the first place, we were the only ones who came on that boat. We didn't see any mysterious stranger riding with us. You don't think that they might have swam across this rough sea, right? I can't really imagine that.
Yeah, alright.
Logically, that's true. It is difficult to imagine that there's a single hidden and uninvited guest on this isolated island. However, it looks like some of us still can't bring themselves to discard that possibility entirely, doesn't it?
Max Potion, yes, this is where I got the name Beatrice, in fact. Although I had not actually have not until now I am, played this game because it's unbelievably long. Like couple hundred hours of reading. But I had, well, it's a whole long story. I'm not going to tell it again. Hideyoshi it's at the start of the playlist, actually. If you go to the Umineko playlist, I think I explained it in the first video. Hideyoshi had left it off saying that there couldn't be a 19th person, but Kyrie had sensitively picked up on the delicate atmosphere among the four siblings. Just by common sense, there couldn't possibly be any uninvited guests on this small isolated island. How on earth would they get here, and from where, and where would they be hiding themselves? And why wouldn't they appear openly, even though they had sent a letter in their own name? None of these could be explained. But considering that none of the 4 siblings had joined in on Hideyoshi's laughing, they seemed unable to completely deny in their hearts the possibility of a 19th person. Kirie-san, I would like to make this clear. We don't remotely believe in that fairy tale about the legend of the witch.
Another topic to insult father, is it? Simply mentioning that is a betrayal against him. Well, yes. However, this is father we're talking about. It is possible that he, you know... I don't know anything.
What's this? What's this? Why has everyone gotten so gloomy? What are you talking about? You're saying the legend of the witch isn't a joke, but a fact? That's ridiculous.
Of course, nobody believes in some witch riding a broom and flying in the sky. But the woman in that portrait, Beatrice, may really have existed on this island.
Hideyoshi-san, it looks like we aren't talking about a witch, but something a little simpler. Let me see if I have this correct. You all suspect that father had a mistress named Beatrice living in secret somewhere on this island. It is something like that. Father is a paragon of a man, a model of self-discipline and restraint. Shut the fuck up, Nazi. It is completely inconceivable that he would bring something so filthy onto this island.
Like, he's not in the room with you. Who is this for? Nazi snapped at her immediately, but it looked like the 4 siblings, including her husband Kraus, didn't think that way. On the contrary, it appeared that they thought Kinzo was exactly the kind of person likely to attempt such a stunt. Yeah, obviously. The existence of a mistress who had Kinzo under her spell had been whispered of since the very beginning, when he had built the mansion on this island. I'm sorry, Nazi-san. I know how much you respect Dad, but that rumor's been around for a long time. Dad prepared this island by himself and built everything. It's been suspected from the beginning that this mansion might have some hidden tricks or secret rooms known only to Dad. And it's also always been whispered that hidden somewhere on this island there might be a secret mansion none of us know about.
Yes, it has.
No one ever fucking just tried to explore the whole island?
This island might look small on a map, but it's quite large for just the Ushiromiya family to live on. So people have wondered whether he might have built a secret mansion somewhere in the uncivilized forest for his mistress to live in.
Y'all really never went in those woods. Fucking uncurious ass children.
That's a rather large-scale story.
In the beginning, we used to say that it might be somewhere inside this mansion, that there might be a hidden basement with a fabulous hidden room where the witch in that portrait was secretly hiding. After seeing that intricate auto lock on Dad's study, it isn't too hard to imagine, right? Indeed, Father did spread the rumor that he hid a large amount of gold in some secret place, protected by some secret mechanism. He's fucking Goldie Roger. Yeah, you live with him. Have you never heard the screaming? Yeah. Well, it's a big house. He might have some thick walls on that room, because it seems like he's really worried about, like, demons getting in. It would not surprise me to find there had existed some hidden room inside this very mansion that none of us knows about yet.
When Mother was alive, she would often scour this entire mansion, searching for it when Father was absent. Mother also suspected what Rudolph just said. She believed that there was a hidden door or stairway somewhere, and that his blonde-haired mistress was hidden behind it.
It's hard to believe that there are some actual examples in other countries of people cheating with someone over a period of several decades by making them live in a hidden attic room. And this was Kinzo with a mansion this extravagant. There was endless opportunity to suspect the existence of hidden rooms.
The legend of the Rokkenjima witch. From what I'd heard, it was just a fairy tale made up to prevent children from entering the uncivilized forest by scaring them. But it's starting to sound like there's a little more to the story.
Well, yeah. As you know, this is a lonely island. Lonely island! I just had sex and it felt so good. I can't believe the phrase lonely island is in this game. I mean, I can, but also I can't. Without anything but the Ushiromiya mansion on it. When Rosa and I were little brats on stormy nights, we were so scared by the sound of rustling trees we could hear from the forest. We had this crazy delusion that something weird might be looking out at us from between those trees. It's only natural for any brat to think something like that. Sure. Just like it's only natural for anybody to wish they were a hot girl. Like Ego Raptor said. But some people heard Rosa and me making those claims and weren't happy to dismiss it as a kid's delusion. Isn't that right, Aniki?
Yes. Nissan and I thought that by coincidence you might have spotted Father's mistress, who had been living in secrecy on this island, as she went out for a walk when no one was looking. Of course, Mother did too.
Among the older servants, too, you often heard that ghost story about how the witch of the portrait wanders around the mansion at midnight. Outwardly, I laughed that off as just a ghost story, but on the inside, I suspected very much that it referred to the existence of a hidden mistress.
In that case, you're saying that the existence of a 19th person might not be completely ridiculous? That they might actually be somewhere around here?
Sounds like a case of that devil's proof Rudolph-san is always talking about. It might be possible to prove that there is a 19th person, but it's impossible to prove that a 19th person doesn't exist. Should we continue this discussion assuming that there is a person named Beatrice hiding somewhere on this island?
As the first step in crisis management, that's the right way. It's probably way more prudent to say she might exist rather than thinking there's no way she does.
I see. Sorry, I was a bit careless. Rosa-san, sorry for laughing just now.
It's alright, I don't mind.
Hideyoshi apologized deeply for not being conscious enough of danger, despite calling himself the president of a company. Silence fell again. By preparing for the existence of a 19th person, they were accepting that some unknown person was hidden on this island. And since this person might have something bad planned for them, it was only natural that it came with a certain degree of discomfort. In the past, Father would sometimes suddenly disappear without telling anyone where he went. After all, he is a person who appreciates silence. It was not out of the ordinary for him to shut himself up in some archive after purposefully not telling anyone where he was going. However, after the witch theory began to be refined into the theory about his mistress, it was eventually whispered that he was secretly going back and forth to see her. Mom was completely overridden with doubt in her final years. Sometimes she'd suddenly start making a racket and asking the servants to look for Dad immediately, saying it was an emergency.
Yes, that did happen sometimes. Mother was always doing things like that in her later years, and that frightening atmosphere still hasn't gone away. I can say it for certain now. She was a person to be pitied.
When are we going to learn about their mom?
So then, what were the results of those large-scale searches of the house? Did they find anything?
No, not a single occasion did they even find Father, let alone any hidden rooms. And every time, after a lot of time had passed, he would suddenly show up somewhere. Then he'd say that he'd been taking a nap in some archive, or that the wind had called him down for a walk on the beach. But it was always some place where the servants had already looked. We never knew where Father had gone. By that time, Father was already famous for his adoration of the occult, so some of the servants exaggerated, saying that he might have turned into butterflies and danced around the rose garden.
They saw her. They saw Beatrice. They knew she was around. They just didn't know it was her.
So in short, Father frequently disappeared and no one knew where he went.
Yeah, Since we couldn't find him no matter how much we looked inside the mansion, we grew increasingly of the opinion that Dad might have gone somewhere outside it. But there isn't much to speak of in the area outside the mansion, which leaves only the expansive forest. And if you tie that in with the legend of the witch from the forest, you get a theory like this. Dad had actually built a hidden mansion somewhere in the forest, inside of which a mistress by the name of Beatrice lived, and he sometimes went to see her. I was also young at that time. At one point I became intent on catching Father cheating, and I tried to follow him when he went outside. I failed, of course. Every time Dad went outside, he was oddly intent on staying out of sight and was extremely cautious that he wasn't being watched. He was like that to a very odd extent. But that actually made me sure he must have been going out for some reason that the members of his family couldn't know about.
And that would be going to meet his mistress, probably trying to avoid being seen.
After hearing Hideyoshi nod and say yes, yes at the thought this was quite obvious, Ava got a little sullen.
Well, anyway, this island was like a sketchbook in which Father, with his Western obsession, could draw out all of his dreams, like a daughter who speaks in a mid-Atlantic accent in Japanese somehow. Everything about this island was exactly how Father wanted it. It wouldn't be odd at all if there was some hidden mansions for his mistress to live in.
Ava's words spoke for what all of the siblings had come to think. For a while the room turned to silence again, and everyone listened to the sound of the wind and rain. Was there a hidden mansion on this island, and had Kinzo's mistress been living here in hiding for a long, long time? Every one of them had thought that they were being too suspicious and had refrained from saying it for the longest time, but it had been a common opinion that everyone shared. Kyrie, who had been listening to the whole time with her eyes closed, spoke to no one in particular.
How long has this rumor about Father's mistress been around?
As soon as we moved to this island, so about 30 years ago. Think about it. It would have been impossible for him to have a hidden mansion constructed once we came here. People and materials would have to be going in and out. We'd have found out in no time. So if this was possible, it would have had to have happened before we moved here. It probably could have been built along with this mansion when we were still living in Odawara.
It's probably appropriate to assume that he had the plan laid out from the beginning to step up a double life with his family and his mistress.
Brian said, so they never just walked around the island as kids on a trek. That's what I was asking too. It seems like they're trying to imply that the woods are like quite deep and dangerous. Like they don't know really what's out there, so they're kind of scared. But it also kind of sounds like Big Bro was following Dad out into the woods, so maybe he's got a little more perspective on it. And he could just be lying, you know, like trying to keep what he really knows a secret.
And his relationship with that mistress probably went back to the days when we lived in Odawara.
It's important to remember these guys are not on the same team. Siblings, not on the same team. Probably. If, as Father says, she is the source of the vast amount of gold that he used to gain the funds which resurrected the Ushiromiya family, we could probably conclude that they had a close relationship, since Odawara at least. A relationship trusting enough for her to lend him a vast quantity of gold. I can't even imagine how old that relationship must have been.
Most likely, she gave Father some invaluable advice for achieving success in business. It's natural to think that, out of a sense of gratitude for that, he described it as if this person had given him gold. If you think about it that way, it's obvious that they would have a close relationship after that. Rather than a debauched relationship with a mistress, it was probably a relationship of gratitude to the person who saved the Ushiromiya family from crisis. Can't it be both?
That way of looking at it might have some sense to it too. Might. You know, a little. Just a shred. It's not super likely or anything. You kinda sound ridiculous, but I'm willing to entertain even your crazy ass. But even in that case, isn't building a hidden mansion and having her live in it a little going too far? Doesn't that mean that there were some emotions in play beyond gratitude?
Well, this is all speculation. In the first place, no one has ever found that hidden mansion. Aniki, you're planning on expanding on this island into a resort, right? You might stumble into it by chance in the process, who knows? Maybe you'd even unexpectedly find some gold there too. That's his way of saying, there's no fucking way you don't know what's on this island, dude. Please, come on.
Do you think Rokenjiba is Treasure Island or something?
Don't play dumb. Although you say that you're opening a resort, we know that it's just a cover for a full-scale investigation of the entire island, okay? Although it sounds as if, due to all that trouble and confusion we were talking about earlier, you haven't been able to carry it out, of course.
Ava's a step ahead of me. She's like, actually, you haven't even fucking gotten this shit done somehow. You're actually, that Kraus is like a huge fuck up, so that makes sense. That checks out. I have a feeling he just kind of makes this face and sits in a chair for most of the day.
I don't know what you're talking about, but you misunderstand. It is perfectly natural that investigating this island would be the first step in turning it into a resort.
Kraus tried to play dumb, but it was plainly obvious to his siblings who knew him so well. Kraus was definitely sure of the existence of a hidden mansion. Oh, okay. And under the pretense of opening a resort, he had been investigating the island in detail, searching for a clue as to the location of the hidden gold. They couldn't tell whether that conviction was just him overthinking things or whether it was based on some physical proof. However, if Kraus, with all of his guile, was convinced, and the other siblings were similarly convinced that there must be a sufficient basis for it.
The story about a witch living in a forest is straight out of a fairy tale, but a story about some blonde-haired girl living secretly in a mansion no one knows about in the middle of a forest isn't much better.
Certainly. Taken on its own, the setting sounds just like some kind of children's story. You like those, don't you, Rosa?
Fucking what the... Just jumping over to bully Rosa about like, hey, aren't you into My Little Pony? You dumb little weirdo over there?
Well, yes.
When the mansion was built on this island, Father was at the heights of his prosperity. With his money, he could probably have obtained anything, made any of his delusions real. A mansion in the forest where a witch quietly waits. It sounds like the kind of setting Dad would like. Doesn't it? Like something from the occult or a fairy tale. It feels like Dad would be into that.
Hello, Dean. On this island, which the Ushiromiya family had lived in for 30 years now, a hidden mansion that no one knew about had been quietly built, and within there lived a witch known only by her portrait. Even this hard-to-believe story might not be completely delusional, considering all of Kinzo's strange habits and his vast wealth. It does kind of look like a lot of that forest is kind of hard to explore, because it is very, like, mountainous. It's not just, like, a flat woods, you know, it's, like, kind of treacherous looking. So I guess I could see not, especially as a kid, not having, like, explored all of it. And they weren't here all the time, either. Well, I don't know. I think the main kids did grow up on the island, right? But I don't know if they were, like, always there like that.
It might not have been impossible for Father to build a hidden mansion to satisfy such a dream. However, let's be realistic. Would it be possible to house his beloved woman in that hidden mansion for decades without it becoming inconvenient? Well, if there was love, it could have been possible, right? Think about the facilities needed to let his beloved woman live healthily, and how Father would do it. For example, even if it was on a small scale, it would have needed an intricate... to have been an intricate and pleasant residence. And in terms of upkeep, it would need electricity, gas, running water, as well as possibly some people to help her. Even providing for her meals would be quite difficult. She would need clothes and makeup, daily necessities. The needs of a woman aren't simple. Would it be possible to maintain all of that without any of the family or servants noticing?
When you say it like that, it sure sounds like a weak point in our story. But that isn't enough to get rid of my feeling that Dad might have been able to pull it off anyway. After all, it is Dad.
That's right. It is Father. When Father had something he wanted to succeed in, he would succeed no matter what. Saying that it would be difficult for a normal person and is therefore impossible doesn't apply when it comes to Father.
I wish people understood that about me too, you know? Nothing I did was possible before I did it. People will be like, well, you could just do things that are like obviously possible. And I'm like, but that's pointless if you can do things that aren't. The main kids did grow up on the island, but they probably went to school sometimes. Indeed.
Yes. You should never underestimate Father. Dad's madness can't be understood by normal people.
I wouldn't put it past the Ushiromiya Kinzo. As long as that word could accompany his name, a considerable amount of credibility dwelled in any story, no matter how absurd. However, that didn't shake the importance of what Kirie had said. This was different from stealthily raising a kitten in a cardboard box and keeping it a secret from your parents. Funny example. Taking care of a person in secret over a period of 30 years would be an incalculably massive task. Well, not incalculably, but it would be pretty hard.
The legend of Father's Gold started before he gained possession of Rokenjima. That would mean he and his mistress go back over 30 years. How old would that make her? In the worst case, she could be as old as us or older, right? By that age, the body starts to break down. I don't care what the mansion's like. I couldn't call livid in a place where people's eyes can't reach, almost as though she were under house arrest, agreeable.
That's right. If what Father told us about Beatrice is true, then that relationship has lasted for over 30 years. She might have been a charming young woman at the time, but it is probably appropriate to think that she's now an old bag like us. I can easily imagine that, given the contents of that letter.
Ava calling herself an old bag when she's got like the tightest fucking bod that a woman in her 40s has ever been depicted with in animation is hilarious.
You should talk.
Kraus laughed as though blind to his own shortcomings. Of course, Ava was offended, but she didn't strike back. Quit it, Aniki. So if everything we imagine is true, she should want to throw out her chest with pride and join in on Dad's inheritance problem. I mean, there's a good chance that this love was mutual, unlike with Mom. She might have been aware that she was his mistress, and yet at the same time felt a kind of pride as his real wife.
That is an insult to Mother.
Yeah, sorry. But everyone knows it was a political marriage decided by his elder relatives. Because of that, we can be sure that it wouldn't be odd for Dad to have a mistress. The family sank after the Great Kanto earthquake, and Kinzo was set up as the Ushiromiya family head against his will. However, in the beginning he was influenced strongly by the elder relatives, who treated him like a puppet while they pulled the strings. He wasn't permitted to decide anything by himself, not even his marriage partner. And by his meeting with the Golden Witch Beatrice in those unhappy days, Kinzo's legend of the gold was quickly embellished into something dramatic. In other words, it could mean that Kinzo met with a woman he really did love. If she also knew his whole story, then even if they weren't marriage partners, it wouldn't have been odd for her to consider herself his true wife inside her heart. And now the person registered as his true wife was already dead.
In which case, she might be fully intending to encroach on not just the rights to his assets, but the battle over the headship as well.
I see. I'm starting to see the purpose of this letter. The headship to the one who solves the epitaph's riddle. So that's what it means.
Even if that mistress obtained a rank within the Ushiromiya family, since she's not a direct relative of Father, she would be inferior to even the children. In other words, she wouldn't be right below Rosa. She would be right below Rosa in rank.
Does this include... Are she saying that even Maria ranks higher than Rosa, or...
That's not a good position to join the battle for the headship.
I guess she just meant herself and them as the children of Kinzo. So that's it. If someone can solve the witch's riddle, they will receive the headship regardless of rank. In other words, it is the most advantageous condition that Beatrice could get, since she had no chance whatsoever. The revival of the Ushiromiya family had been made possible by the gold Beatrice had bestowed. In other words, the credit belonged to her. She had built that wealth together with Kinzo, so it was natural that she would have thought of herself as the one who should inherit it. It would also be natural for her to despise the thought of giving a single cent to the children of the wife Kinzo had never loved.
How incredibly impertinent. Even if this mistress actually existed, for her to fight over the rights to the head's inheritance would be an outrageous action far above her place. What disregard for her own place!
That's what I don't like about you, Natsuhi, is you have too much regard for your specific place. Natsuhi turned red, her fist quivering. There were also complicated circumstances behind her entry into the Ushiromiya register. Those who knew that understood more or less why she was so angry for the sake of Kinzo's dead wife.
Well, thanks to her outrageous action, we now all have an even chance, right? And also, Father has given that outrageous action his silent approval. Will the person who succeeds the Ushiromiya family be his mistress Beatrice, or one of us who he may not love, but who do carry his blood? Maybe he wants to make us struggle over that to see who is worthy.
As Ava giggled roguishly, Kraus shrugged his shoulders and looked away.
However, since it was the other party that brought up this condition, I wonder if that means that the other party has a significant advantage.
That's a point, too. In the first place, if Beatrice meant that letter literally, then she's Father's alchemist. In other words, she's the manager of his gold. It wouldn't be strange at all if she knew where it was hidden, would it? What a bad joke this is.
This fucking bass line. Hold on. I gotta listen to this for a second. Yeah. Peep the style of the kids checking for it. The number one suggestion is you motherfucking floor it. Got bored at the bullshit, old at the new shit, cool lit, switch in the bitch, whole school brick, cut up on your genitals, swap 'em, kill a couple cops and set your fucking block on fire, start over, put a Range Rover through Fort Knox, kill a couple more cops and burn the Federal Reserve, stab a perv in the throat, swerve / clip Joe Rogan on your way to Elon Musk, see the motherfucker dusted in a duster when a cluster bomb set off goes kabam, you motherfuckers don't know me, I'm crazy as shit and I'm OG Trixie Goldie witch in the building, run, she might burn the whole thing down for fun, she loves being out in the sun, no really, run. Okay.
What a bad joke this is. It's like she's giving us a riddle that she knows the answer to. She'll probably show up rudely, say, hey, here's the answer, I'll take the headship now, and snatch everything away from us.
That's right. The one who sets a riddle always knows the answer. There's a good chance that this is all a trap to steal everything from us.
If you think about it like that, don't you start to doubt whether she really has the gold in the first place? Why would she tell us about it? All she'd have to do would be stay silent and embezzle it. You're right. You are right. Doesn't make much sense. Indeed, it was just as they said. If the epitaph showed the way to where the gold was hidden, why would she challenge them to try to solve it? If they actually did solve it, wouldn't the gold all be stolen? Could it be that this person was trying to stir the siblings up so that they tried to solve the epitaph and would then snatch it up before they did solve it? That was a very reasonable guess.
No. If you flip over the chessboard, there might be a pretty good chance that they actually do have the gold.
The good old Kyrie chessboard flip. Let's go.
How can you be so certain?
Wait, Aniki. Kyrie, please keep talking. Why do you think that?
After all, do they really think that just telling us the answer to the riddle in the witch's epitaph would seriously be enough for us to hand over the headship of the Ushiromiya family? That we'd be so impressed at the answer to the riddle that we'd just give up?
Well, that's true. If they think we just give up after being told the answer to the riddle, that we'd just say, here you go and hand it over, they've got another thing coming.
Of course. The headship of the Ushiromiya family is not something that can be handed over so easily. That's it exactly. No matter how one-sided a game Beatrice proposes, and even if she splendidly shows us the answer, there's no way that we'll obediently hand over the headship. In other words, unless there is something that forcibly compels us to play this game under fair conditions, this game won't function as a game.
That's right. She'd have to do something like, I don't know,
trap us in a time loop where she keeps murdering us by midnight if we can't guess the epitaph, and eventually we have to like realize we're in a time loop by turning into like celestial god-powered witches and like rewrite history through the power of belief. I think that's the only way we're going to be able to figure this. That's right, unless the losers are forcibly compelled to hand over the headship, the game doesn't work. And what would this compelling force be? Would they bind us in chains and threaten us into handing over the headship?
I see. I get it. They would just have to do something which would make us willingly give up the headship. I see. Then yes, certainly Beatrice would have to be in possession of the 10 tons of gold.
Right, I get it too. I'm also smart. In other words, it's a trade, right?
Huh? What do you mean? I'm not also smart. A trade? Trade what? The Ushiromiya family headship for the hidden gold. Beatrice surely plans to tell us the location of the 10 tons of gold and use that as a bribe to gain the Ushiromiya family headship. Ridiculous! They want to trade the succession to the glorious Ushiromiya family for money? Blasphemy! Blasphemy against the Ushiromiya family!
But the gold is where the power comes from. If she has the gold and then you don't have the gold, then...
Listen without getting mad. About how
good fucking luck.
About how much wealth does this glorious Ushiromiya family have right now? Are we really that affluent? The definition of affluence is not dependent on property. It is about heart. Huh. Of what relevance is our financial situation to
How much fucking heart do you see in this family? Kraus interrupted Nazi as she started to go on emotionally. Thank God. In this situation, the more she went on and on emotionally, the worse it would actually sound for them. Myself aside, I have heard that the rest of you are in pretty unfavorable situations right now.
Oh, really? I've heard that your financial situation is extremely unfavorable, actually. Repeatedly exchanging collateral for new money to gamble with, or repeatedly dabbling in gamble after gamble, unable to accept your losses. If you really want to talk about our state of affairs, not one of us here is as impoverished as you, Nissan. How much have you lost, Nissan? You have no talent. Who are you saying has no talent?
You too.
And impoverished, you say?
Nazi became indignant once again, but Kraus raised his hand and interrupted her.
It seems you are making a small mistake. Business is not something that can be judged simply on progress. When someone conducts business with a view to the long term, as I do, it may sometimes appear at a glance that they have suffered some significant short-term losses.
I know what cope looks like.
Aniki, we've been collecting evidence. Now is not the time to be putting up a front. So this is what Kyrie is trying to say. Every last one of us is stuck for money. And Beatrice has 10 tons of gold.
As the only person who knows the location of the 10 tons of gold, Beatrice is planning on using it to force us to sell the position of the family head. About how much is 10 tons of gold worth? As a rough estimate, 2 billion yen. No, 20 billion yen. If she threw that much our way, we'd be jumping with joy to accept her as the successor to the head. Settle all our debts, please, Miss Goldie Witch.
The scene returned to silence. Even the rain and the wind sounded louder. That was probably also the sound of the windstorm that disturbed the insides of their minds.
You must be joking. The thought that just because she tossed me a little money, I'd give up the family headship to some woman of doubtful origin.
Don't talk stupid. You weren't even going to succeed father as the head in the first place. We have nothing to lose and money to gain. Sure, we'll have to calculate our profit and loss, but it's something worth listening to.
Damn, that's the first time Hideyoshi has just flat out been like, Ava, wait, hold the fuck on. Stop. They knew that much of the Ushiromiya family assets had been eaten up by Kraus. The dregs that remained of the inheritance versus the compensation for being accepted as the head that Beatrice would pay. It was a shame, but honestly, the former was less enticing than the latter. Well, it probably wouldn't end up as 4 equal portions. Since Aniki would be giving up his position of successor, his portion would have to be larger. Makes me feel kind of jealous, you know. Making deals.
Dear, the amount of money isn't the problem, right? Your cowardly younger siblings are trying to sell the glory of the Ushiromiya family for money. This is all I've been working for 20 goddamn years. Why aren't you displaying your dignity as the eldest son?
Natsuhi, stay quiet for a while.
Anata!
This is a dizzying proposal. We were each planning on getting 250 yen out of Aniki. If the witch would treat us with even 10% of these 10 tons...
That's 2 billion.
Yeah. That would mean she's treating us with 10 times our original goal. That alone would be more than enough for us. It's not like I have any attachment to the Ushiromiya family name. I'd be happy to sell it off.
Even if the full 10 tons might be a bit much to expect, I see it would still be an attractive prospect for us. We were trying to form an alliance among the siblings to kick this outsider called Beatrice out. But if this is her plan, it will tear apart the unity between us. Yes, by this point we can state it clearly. The goal of Beatrice's letter was to disturb our alliance.
What fucking... y'all were barely allies! If the 3 younger siblings who were never going to have any connection with the succession of the headship in the first place were paid enough money to satisfy them, they would happily accept Beatrice as the next head. So every obstacle to her headship would be removed except for Kraus. In that case, the negotiations would be one-on-one between her and Kraus. God, this music's creepy as fuck. He tried to look strong, but Kraus's financial and political situation was extremely weak. He did bluff in front of his siblings, but on the inside he was probably thinking that it might be alright to enter negotiations depending on the sum of money involved. In order to bury his losses, Kraus had taken advantage of the fact that Kinzo had shut himself up in his room and had embezzled Kinzo's personal assets. Oh. Therefore, when Kinzo died and the inheritance was distributed, Kraus would be held accountable for that. But if he gave up his seat as the head to Beatrice, she would also receive the rights to the assets, and as a result, the distribution of the inheritance to the siblings would not occur. In other words, Kraus's embezzlement might not have to be made known to the other siblings. Of course, the siblings were frightened of Kinzo, but it was doubtful whether they still actually respected him as a father. By this time, they each had their own families, their own wealth, and their own lives. If they were paid enough money in exchange for Rokenjima, the wretched remains of Kinzo's dreams, there was a significant possibility that they would relinquish the Ushiromiya family name. In other words, Beatrice's victory was already guaranteed in this game, not as the winner of Beatrice's game, but as the winner of Kinzo's game. Kinzo had put up the epitaph, and to this day no one had been able to solve it. So Beatrice had solved it. In other words, this is less of a game and more like Beatrice's declaration of victory. However, Kyrie still felt something was slightly out of place. If this was a declaration of victory, Beatrice would only have to display the gold openly and state that she would buy the family headship. And yet, even at this late stage, she was explicitly telling the siblings to try to solve the epitaph. Why had she set up this new game where she agreed to hand over all the gold and the right to succeed to the head to the person who solved the epitaph? Kyrie tried flipping over the chessboard several times, searching for the best strategy that might have guided Beatrice to this line of thinking. In the end, that's like a fucking 8th dimensional chessboard that she's got. In the end, she reached a single conclusion.
Arrogance, perhaps? Or maybe she's playing? What are you talking about? The witch sent us a letter of challenge telling us to try to solve the epitaph. She might be taking us lightly, thinking we could never solve it. However, there should at least be an extremely small chance that we will solve it. After all, we have 4 of Father's children by blood, right? 4 people related by blood to the questioner who, if they tried frantically to work together and avoid having those assets stolen from them, might come across the answer of the riddle by chance.
The reason the witch had a superior position on the negotiations compared to the siblings was that she only knew the location of the hidden gold. But if that hiding place was exposed to someone other than her, the witch's superior position would crumble. In short, Beatrice gains nothing but risk by writing this witch's letter of challenge. But we all know how magic works. More risk, more reward, just like in Hunter x Hunter.
Of course, it might have had the effect of splitting apart the siblings' alliance, but if that was her only goal, why would she take this risk, however slight it might be? I think that's reckless. But if you keep in mind a certain type of emotion, it becomes possible to understand that risk.
Thrill?
And you're saying that's arrogance? Yes, that's right. When people have an overwhelming advantage, they tend to get arrogant. And when they do, they sometimes deliberately take on a small risk to show off that advantage to the losers. A moderate amount of risk adds a little spice to the joy of victory. Nothing is as boring as victory without risk.
What the hell did I just do?
I understand that. I also like that sort of thing. I understand well. I tried thinking of a few other plausible explanations for the true motive behind Beatrice's letter, but I think that this really might be the truth. The emotion hidden behind that letter was arrogance. Arrogance. She's trying to throw her weight around, looking down on us, as if there's no way we could figure out such a difficult epitaph. It might even be possible, if surprising, that the epitaph wasn't written by Father, but by her. Fine by me. Solve the riddle of the epitaph, she says.
I'll fucking do it. Fuck this bitch.
If only I solved it, I would be made the head, right? I'll solve it. I'll accept the witch's challenge. As if my other brain-dead siblings could solve it. I'll solve it by myself, and then I'll prove that I am the one who is fit to succeed the Ushiromiya family.
I'll take that challenge. I will. Solve the riddle.
Hell yeah. Let's go. Let's go. You got this, Ava. I believe in you. Use all of your cunt power. Ah! I need to take a little break and stand up and walk around a bit. Because my fucking back and voice are... Naruhodo. Naruhodo na. I'll be back in a little bit. I'm gonna put on some music for y'all to listen to while I'm out of the room also. Oh wait, there is music. Never mind. We need a BRB scene. That's true. Could probably build one of those. It'd probably just be the Golden Butterflies logo really big. Like, just rearrange the butterflies in the link tree so that they're, like, in the middle and one on top of the other, and just a message that says something like, shitting, you know? I wasn't shitting, but that's what it might as well be. Okay. Alright, I'm Beak. I see. So not a witch, but a mistress by the name of Beatrice did exist on this island. So there can be more than 18 people. Which means I can defeat that line of reasoning which says that if it was impossible for all 18 people, it must be a crime involving magic. That's some big information. I fucking forgot that they introduced Kyon in this chapter. That's the creepy servant he was referring to earlier. It's the funniest shit in the world that he has that face and that voice. It just, like, it's the most Tomokazu Sugita it could be. Like, the most of a Tomosugi character it could possibly be. How do I want to handle his voice? Shitsure shimasu. Excuse me. Battler-sama, would you care for some black tea and cookies? Beato's butler, who called himself Ronove, appeared out of nowhere in particular. Placed upon the silver tray that he held was a plate filled with delicious-looking steaming black tea and cookies. I really don't like this guy's smile. For some reason, it doesn't look like a smile used to warmly greet a guest. It feels like he's making fun of me for some reason. I don't know whether he really takes me for an idiot, or whether it's just a joke or something, but it's really irritating me. I don't want any. I'm busy right now. Leave me alone. Oh my. That is a shame when the cookies have turned out oh so very delicious. Cooked so wonderfully, it is a shame to waste them on a simple human, truly wonderful cookies. I'll eat some when I feel like it. Set it down somewhere over there and get out of here. Will that be acceptable? Then I shall do so. You may eat them when they get cold and stale, and then regret as much as you like that you did not eat them when they were freshly baked. You really are annoying. Well, you're a lot better than Beato, who keeps doing that creepy cackle right next to my fucking ear. Oh, yes, that is quite true. There are times when Milady's laughter becomes quite undignified. Every time I hear it, I think of my noble rank and struggle to comprehend why I must have such a person as my master. Man, you're weird. If you don't like it, then couldn't you just not work for her? To continue serving despite that is furniture's joy. One could not serve as furniture without such an attitude. Let us set that aside. How has the game been proceeding? Just now I believe I heard you say that you had found some good information and were quite pleased by it. Well now, I wonder what your shallow wit has thought up. As Ronobe made fun of me and giggled, he followed my earlier words to the letter and placed the black tea and cookies somewhere arbitrary nearby. I imagine it is because you have gained increased confidence in the existence of a 19th person. Would you be gracious enough to allow me to hear your opinion? Yeah, sure. I'm just going to say it again in front of Beato anyway. No reason to hide it. Alright, it looks like there's a hidden mansion somewhere on this island, and that grandfather had his mistress living there. In that case, the question that's been torturing me about whether there are 18 or 19 people can be easily resolved. Although you deny witches, you hold a double standard by refusing to seek a culprit among the 18 and have driven yourself into a dead end. The easiest way to deny the witch would be to doubt one of the 18. It's not so easy for every one of the 18 to have an alibi. You always find at least one person with a fragile alibi. I could probably continue to deny the witch forever if I just used that person as a sacrifice. However, I will steadfastly refuse to do that. Good man. Yeah, that's no good. That's no goddamn good at all. Every one of those 18 people is either a parent, a relative, or a cousin to me. And some of them are terrible at those roles, but nonetheless, those reliable servants who we sometimes get serious and sometimes are funny, I won't let myself use any one of them as a sacrifice. In the past, my resolve wavered. That's how Beato hit me where my heart was weak. Accepting and understanding your own weaknesses. That is not something which can often be accomplished. Battler Sama, you are using this theory about a 19th person as a spear. Or should I say a shield? In any event, unlike how unprepared you were in the games up until now, let us call the fact that you now have a compass bearing on how to fight a dramatic leap forward. With this, you need not doubt any of the 18 you love and respect, and can easily suspect a 19th person, and pursue your theory that the culprit is a human. That's it exactly! Like in the first game when Kanon-kun was killed in the boiler room, and a bunch of other places, there are countless tricks I can use without hesitation if a 19th person existed. In the very first game, Kanon-kun had been killed in the boiler room. One might think that he was attacked by Kumasawa-san, who had gone down into the boiler room with him, or maybe that someone who had appeared to be dead earlier was actually faking and had ambushed Kanon-kun in the boiler room. Either way, it was a move that forced me to suspect one of the 18. I feel like this is starting to be directly addressed to people like Amy who are like taking notes and writing out a whole theory, like, hey, just in case you've written all this down, here's what we think about it. You know, now that there's new information. However, by simply proposing that a 19th person exists, there's no longer any need to suspect one of the 18 for that murder in the boiler room. By the way, if you want like extensive notes and theorizing about this game that's like on par, like pace with the series, hit up Amy Worrell about that. She has a doc. It's a big doc. In short, impossible for any of the 18 equals the culprit is a witch, is an equation that I can now deny. Using this argument, we can take, for example, the question which has been raised once again in this game. Oh, and if you need to find Amy, I have a link to the death list right down there. Hey, ideas. Just sat down on the floor and I almost couldn't get back up again. That sounds, yeah, it's exhausting. Zaya is currently at a massive convention. I don't know if you want me to say which one. I can't imagine anybody any of the 6 people who happen to be at this live stream is actually at it. Yeah, it sounds exhausting. You had to drive like 12 hours yesterday. I do not envy that. I've only done a couple of drives that were 12 hours, and they were traumatizing, each one. So, like I can remember each drive and like specific moments during that drive where my mind was just like about to crack, where it was like, this is gonna, I can't fucking, I don't want to have to do this anymore, but I have to keep doing this, so I guess I'm still doing it, you know. It's a tough amount of drive. And then also to go then, have to deal with traffic in a big city, which is the main reason that Bird and I don't go to cities that often. Like, we love conventions and stuff, but the traffic is always heinous. So, like, you know, that's a big part of why we do so much camping out in the woods instead. Anyway, I'm going to get back to reading Umineko just in a second. I'm making sure that none of these notifications I have are anything integral. Alright. Using this argument, we could take, for example, the question which has been raised once again in this game, who gave Maria the letter, and come up with an easy explanation. Even if all 18 people have alibis, I could easily explain everything by saying that a 19th person visited her and gave her the letter. I think that is quite a good move. How would I strike back?
Battler-sama, despite your understanding, there are still plenty of weak points. Perhaps the 18 people attack will be an effective move. As an attempt to judge how strong your defense is, it may be interesting to attack from that angle again.
Then how would you do it, Demon Butler?
I believe it would be appropriate to attack this 19th piece that you have played. Battler-sama, have you ever met this 19th person? May I ask for some proof that this 19th person exists?
How naive. Of course I knew you'd probably try that move.
My. Please respond to it.
Witches and demons and the like, there's no move more appropriate for you than this one. And that is... the Devil's Proof. When we humans are accused of something, we always counterattack by saying to show some fucking evidence, because that's a human move. But I'm fighting with a witch. I'm taking part in a battle with someone who isn't human, and some moves exist which can only be used in a game against a witch. There are cheap moves, and that's what this Devil's Proof is. Therefore, evidence is unnecessary. Let's take the assumption that there is a hidden mansion on Rokenjima separate from the Ushiromiya family mansion, and that a woman named Beatrice is living there. In order to prove this, one must find this mansion and actually bring Beatrice out of it. That's called actual proof in the human world. However, if we follow the rules of the Devil's Proof, you can't disprove that she exists even if there's no evidence that she does, because it's impossible to prove that something doesn't exist. That's right, this Devil's Proof, which tormented me so much before, I finally managed to use to my own advantage. Those guys were always trying to force me to accept the existence of the witch by using the Devil's Proof. That was because in response to Beato's professions that witches do exist, I physically could not offer any proof that witches don't exist. That is why I have been subjected to this nonsense that witches exist and why I have been unable to counterattack. But I grew a brain. I flipped the chessboard right over. If I can't disprove that witches exist, then that means if I suggest that a 19th human exists, you can't disprove that either. In other words, the enigmatic mistress in question is craftily hiding herself, so it's perfectly natural that you can never find her, no matter how hard you look. You know, I feel like maybe the reason it's been hard for me to, like, totally connect to Battler's perspective is that, like, up until him saying this just now, is I, like, took this for granted. Like it feels like, man, dude, you just now, like, thought about that? No wonder you've been going through so much bullshit. So you can't say that the 19th person can't be found equals the 19th person doesn't exist. Therefore, it is impossible to disprove a 19th person. Beato used the Devil's Proof to make denying her existence impossible, but this time it's become my weapon. If we can get away with this argument, then never mind a 19th person, this island could be full of people we don't know about. And even if there are 10 or 100 of them hiding, she still can't disprove that they exist. In the last game and the one before that, among the murder scenes that showed up, there were several that were extremely intricate and must have taken a lot of effort to set up. It's very difficult to imagine that a single culprit could have set all of those up. However, if not just a 19th person, but 10 or 100 people were hidden somewhere, that wouldn't be any problem at all. If they all split up the work, they could handle any job in a short period of time. Of course, doubts will naturally arise at whether a large group of people like that could sneak around the mansion without being noticed, but those are all settled by the Devil's Proof, because not seeing or not noticing 100 people inside the mansion does not disprove that they were there. Even though I'm saying it myself, it's such a stupid argument that it makes me want to throw up. Well, look, okay, I've played Touhou, so I know that if you really want to clean a large mansion, you just gotta stop time and summon like 300 small clones of yourself, to fucking... However, it's because it's such a dirty as hell move that makes it the perfect one to use against a witch. Well, we're only imagining here, but the thought of about 100 suspicious men wearing goat masks hiding in the shadows, that goes beyond funny, makes me think of cockroaches. If you see one, it means there's 100 hiding in the shadows. Please stop reminding me that when there were 2 on the stairs between my room and the downstairs that died on those stairs yesterday of the poison I sprayed the first one with, the second one then proceeded to die of it. She figured it out. Sakuya is the culprit, indeed. Well, I do think this is a ridiculous argument that's horribly twisted. If my opponent was human, I'm sure they'd yell at me like I was out of my mind. But my opponent is a witch, and after all, does that not count as him accepting that she's a witch? And after all, that is the kind of competition we're having, isn't it? I'll use any kind of reckless argument to explain it using humans and deny the witch. Anyways, with this move, I'll never again have to doubt any of the 18 who are close to me. I will never again repeat the defeat I suffered last time. I guess the more he contradicts himself, the more powerful Beato's going to become, both in the argument and literally because her witch's powers are powered by his belief. And he is literally saying that he is believing she is a witch while disbelief. Like I won't say it. It's just like evidentially true, but that doesn't matter because that's not the argument we're having. It's like the way he's acting. I see. You have learned from your defeat last time. That is good. It is no surprise that by the third game you have become quite devious. You first strengthen your own defense. That is truly a solid first step. Quite a spectacular move, I think. Well, even if we do assume that there is a 19th person, there are still a few tricks left that I can't get past no matter how many humans I add, like the number of master keys. Still, it isn't bad as first step, for the time being. This is your trump card, the important piece known as the 19th person. You countered my move of asking for evidence by using the devil's proof, a good skirmish. Although I have no excuse for making moves by myself when Milady is absent, I find that I too have become slightly interested. I wonder if you would permit me to make yet another move on Milady's behalf? Go for it. I don't care if you're a witch or a demon, I'll take you all on. The move that you made, the devil's proof, it is a specialty of us demons, but there are also various other moves available to us. Do you know of a move called Hempel's Raven? Hempel's Raven? What are you talking about? Just then, that laugh, which gets on my nerves every time I hear it, started echoing around. Hey, it's the golden butterflies! The room was filled with dazzling golden butterflies, and in the center of that whirlwind, the Golden Witch appeared. As you do. Why, if it isn't Milady? Good morning.
I thought you might be doing something interesting while I was away. Hempel's Raven, was it? What an amusing and nostalgic move. To think the day would come when it would be introduced to Battler. It's a classic move to use against the devil's proof. Renove, I will make this move. Do not get in the way of my fun. So you finally shown up, you guffawing witch. I see you still have that undignified laugh. This guy was talking behind your back just now, telling me about how your laughing lacks class, right? I am offended. Is that true?
By no means. I only have words of the highest heartfelt respect for Milady. Why would I speak such gossip?
I can't believe you could say that so brazenly. Doesn't look like we'll be getting along well together.
Well, that is fine. Let us return to the conversation. Hempel's Raven is used to show proof using the contrapositive. Essentially, it is a move like this. What must you do to prove that ravens are black?
Huh? What are you talking about? Proof that ravens, is this like a no true Scotsman fallacy type thing? Wouldn't you just have to catch the raven and check to see if they're black?
That is right. You must simply prove that if it is a raven, it is black. And do you see that if you prove that if a bird is not black, it is not a raven, you would reach the same argument? If you go throughout the world and examine all birds that are not ravens and prove that none of them are black, then as a result you can't claim that therefore birds that are black are ravens. This is called an argument by contrapositive. Is that difficult for you?
Yeah, no kidding. I have no idea what you're saying.
Battler-sama, what about this example? Let us say that you have 2 boxes, and one of them is the winner with a cookie inside. Of course, the other one is the loser and is empty. For example, let us say that we have 2 boxes here, one being the winner with a cookie inside, and the other being the loser, which is empty. Now, it holds that if there is a cookie inside, it is the winner, and at the same time, it also holds that if it is not the winner, there is no cookie inside. When such a relationship exists, we call the letter the contrapositive. When if A then B is true, then at the same time, if not B then not A is also true. Well, that's obvious. If the one you picked was the loser, then you would automatically know that the other one was the winner. In other words, if you choose the box at random, whether it's a winner or loser, you'll be able to figure out which box has the cookie in it after the first move.
That is correct. If the cookie is in the box you open, then the devil's proof is satisfied. You can prove directly that this box is the winner equals this box has a cookie in it. However, if the box that you open is empty, then the reverse, Hempel's Raven, is satisfied, because then it holds that this box does not have a cookie in it that equals this box is not the winner, and that means as long as we accept the premise that there are no more than 2 boxes, the contrapositive shows that the other box is automatically the winner.
Well, I think I'm starting to see your reasoning. Only poison can stop poison, and only twisted logic can stop twisted logic. Takes a philosopher to kill a philosopher. Then what? How does that overturn my claim that no doubt there is a 19th human hidden on this island? So even if all of the 18th people have alibis, that does not amount to an acceptance of witches.
Very well. I will tell you my move. First of all, you are stating that if the culprit is not among the 18, then the culprit is the 19th person. So if you use the contrapositive, it ends up like this. In short, if the culprit is not a 19th person, then the culprit is one of the 18.
What? Oh shit, you're falling into a trap. What does that mean?
All I have done is turn your move on its head. It shouldn't be that difficult to understand. Ronobe, explain. It seems your cookie in a box analogy from before will be easy for Battler to understand.
Then forgive my presumption. Allow me to explain using my earlier example once more. Allow me to repeat once more my earlier story about 2 treasure chests, one of which has a cookie in it. In this situation, one of the boxes represents the 18 people, and the other box represents the 19th person, so the cookie would represent the culprit. Battler-sama, you open the 18th box. Because the cookie is not there, you have proven from the opposite direction, therefore the cookie is in the 19th box. In that case, if we reverse things further, we can also say the following, namely, if it was first shown that the 19 box was empty, it would prove in just the same way that the cookie is in the 18 box. Battler-sama, this move you played in order to avoid having to doubt any of the 18 has in fact been used against you to launch the 18-person attack.
Huh? What did you say? If I go first and prove that inside of the 19 box is empty, automatically you'll be forced to accept that the cookie is in the 18 box. All you have done is say this the other way around, you see?
So the move that I was so confident in was actually a double-edged sword?
That's right! Your move to explain everything with a 19th person carries the risk that if it is thwarted, you will be forced to accept that you can only explain things by using the 18.
I see. Hempel's Raven. So this is a countering technique. Well, wait, if I really think about it, this countering technique is far more disadvantageous for me than for her. The problem is in thinking about it like a cookie. If I imagine that just one of the treasure chests is a losing chest with a bomb in it, I can begin to understand it quite well. And if I think of it not as 2 treasure chests, but as 18, one for each person, plus one more for the 19th person, for a total of 19 boxes, it gets even easier to understand. Not really. I mean, I guess, but also... First of all, one of the premises established by the human culprit theory was that the bomb would definitely be in one of these boxes. Because I hadn't wanted to place that bomb in any of the 18's boxes, I had used the devil's proof and created the 19th box so that I could throw the bomb in there. That much was alright. But Beato had stuck back like this. If then the 19th... Yeah, I know. I get it. She just explained it. She explained it perfectly fine. If I could examine the contents of each of the 18's boxes and show that the bomb was not in any of those boxes, I would be able to safely show that the 18 people were innocent. If that was possible, I would be feeling confident. However, in reality, that's as close as you can get to impossible. The police wouldn't come here in this typhoon. There would be no scientific investigations, no autopsies, no nothing. In short, I can't show anything decisively. It's impossible for me to find any proof other than simply gulping down whatever alibis each of the 18 gave. In that case, I have to confirm their innocence both personally and perfectly. Ooh boy. That's an arc for you to just open up. Like staying with someone the whole time, never letting them out of my sight for a second, and then doing that 18 times. How? If I do that, I can probably be sure of that person's innocence, and that the bomb is not in that box. However, in reality, something like that is impossible. In other words, I have to expend an incredible effort to just check the contents of one box, and there are 18 of them. In other words, unless I bind all 18 of them in chains and watch over them, it's impossible to prove that all of them have empty boxes. You also could easily just be changing who the culprit is. There could be 5 people who had intentions to do the same thing, and only one of them got away with it. But by tying up the one who did get away with it, you enable another person to get away with it. I'm sure this will be addressed. Because everything is in this game. And show that it is empty to prove that the bomb is in one of the other 18 boxes. Furthermore, there's no need for her to show which of the 18 boxes has the bomb. I have 18 times more work to do to explain my pet theory than Beato does for hers. You have way more than that. Way more than 18. You have 18 to the power of 18 or something like that. Impossible number of possibilities there.
Just as you know from the devil's proof, there are many cases in this world where refuting something would take a vast amount of effort that is impossible in practice. However, Hempel's Raven turns that problem around and makes it possible to prove things easily. Just narrow it down.
By using Hempel's Raven, various reckless arguments become possible to prove. For example, let us say that I make the proposition, all humans except me are foolish. Normally, in order to prove this, I would have to examine all of humanity except myself and show that they are all foolish. However, in reality, it would be impossible to investigate billions of people. It is exactly the same kind of effort you would need to... Fuck, I clicked too fast. Effort you would need to open all 18 boxes.
However, by using Hempel's Raven, the contrapositive of that proposition would change it as follows. Essentially, take this all humans except me are foolish, and to use your style of phrase, flip over the chessboard, and you merely need proof that not foolish equals me. And what do you think that means? As soon as I know the fact that I am wise, I finish proving in an instant that every one of the billions of people in the human race is foolish.
I did this literally like yesterday. We were talking about IQ in my Discord, and I realized that the only sane way to handle it is to just insist that I have 150 IQ and leave it at that. If you think that taking an IQ test will prove that more so than saying it, I'm sorry, your IQ is not 150 like mine.
In less than a second, I can finish proving that the entire human race is more foolish than me. It's the strongest and fastest QED in the world. This is Hempel's Raven.
What a ridiculous argument.
It is a very, very convenient move.
There is no way to prove I am wise, so this is meaningless. You can, by way of... Okay, the word wise only means anything in as much as we use it to mean something specific. And therefore, its definition is defined by how many people agree on the definition, and the best way to determine what is wise is to assign a person. So if you choose a person and everybody agrees that, like, definitionally this person is what wise is, then that person becomes objectively wise in as much as the word only has meaning in as much as there is a consensus definition. This is why I like using the word consensus instead of objective. But, you know, like, functionally, when it comes to language, words only have meaning by way of consensus. So if you all decide that someone is, like, one person defines wisdom, then in as much as the word wise means anything, it means that person. So that is how you could prove I am wise, which I just did. So now you know that the word wise means Beatrice the Golden Witch in all contexts. And therefore, I have successfully proven what Beatrice also proved just now in the video game. When you propose blessed equals God's servant, the contrapositive is if a human is not a servant of God, then he must not be blessed. So in order for servants of God to prove that they are granted fortune by their divine protection, they only have to prove that those who don't receive that divine protection suffer misfortune. Therefore, by bringing misfortune down upon those people who don't believe in their own God, they prove their own blessedness.
It takes an enormous cost to give humans happiness. However, the necessary cost to bring humans misfortune is much cheaper.
That's the most evil fucking sentence I have ever seen. I'm gonna screen cap this and blue sky it, because this is fucking true supervillain talk right here. That's fucking madness. It's true. It's just true. But doing it on purpose is...
So by using Hempel's Raven, gods can actually give believers the joy of divine protection at the lowest cost.
You demon. It's a demon's argument. That's messed up.
It seems that we've gone off topic. Let us return to it. I have finished describing the move for my counterattack. The counterattack to your claim that a 19th person is the culprit, therefore the 18 are innocent and the witch doesn't exist, is, in that case, if I can prove that the culprit is not some 19th person, do we agree that the culprit must either be one of the 18 or a witch? I await your answer.
That's a pretty rough position to put yourself. That feels like a checkmate position, or at least check. For a while I just stood there shocked, completely forgetting to close my mouth. Just when I thought that I'd got my own back on them by using their favorite move against them, the counterattack to that had been this reckless argument that I could not even have begun to imagine. Was it really impossible to continue denying the witch on an island with no more than 18 people and yet still believe in the innocence of those 18 people? Was that just a delusion? Was I trying to escape reality? Yes. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Un momento. Yellow.
I'm doing good. I'm streaming Umineko right now. How are you doing? Oh yeah, I forgot you forgot your glasses. That sucks. I'm sorry. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, you look like you literally can't see at all. That's wild. Amazing. Mm-hmm. Incredible.
Yeah. Incredible. Well, I've pretty much got up, got ready to stream, and then started streaming for. I've been streaming for like 2 hours at this point. Not yet. No, I was gonna do that right after the stream. I figure I'll just use your car. That'll be easier. What'd you say? It's going pretty good. I'm enjoying the game. Haven't had a ton of live viewers, but usually these are more of a VOD thing anyways, so I'm not too shocked by that. And then I'll probably do another request stream tonight, because LaPusha had put in one that I didn't end up getting to because it got too late. We were like, we all need to go to bed now. Anyway, I'll get back to my stream now. I love you. Have a good drive. I'll see you soon. Maybe. Alright, I'm probably going to keep this stream going until Bird gets home. That should be like half an hour to 45 minutes from now. And then I'm going to go out and get food and make food. So, while this might not be a super lengthy, I guess it's probably pretty normal length for one of these, but I do want to do these more frequently. I think I've gotten better at it, and I want to do it more. And the game is picking up. It's getting really interesting and fun. You know, it's a lot less... It's still repetitive in the way that characters talk, and they really like hammer points home, but at the very least, the story has opened up its structure enough that it's like a lot harder to predict where it's going, like what's about to happen, you know. Feels more mysterious. And I know I like said in my write-up about the anime, which covered like the first 4 chapters, I think, that chapter 3 was my favorite part of the anime. And like when it really got badass, so it'll be fun to see how that... I don't really remember any of what's happened in this part being in the anime in particular. They cut a lot, so anyway. Not yet. Don't give up this struggle yet. Who cares about whoever's Raven? They're just trying to speak in riddles by bringing up some weird bits of trivia. I had used the devil's proof. Don't feel doubt in something once you've used it. Believe in the spear you've lunged forward with. Apply even more force and gouge it in.
The game is still in the opening. Do you already intend to spend this long thinking?
Wait a sec, I want to be sure. Well, yes, I did use the phrasing of a 19th person to make it easy to understand. If I can use the devil's proof to raise the number of people above 18, then what I mean is an unspecified large number of extra people. You don't know if it's 10 or 100. Always one more than you assume, understand? She had returned my twisted logic with something even more twisted, so the only thing that could counter that would be even crazier twisted logic. I see. Even if I somehow prove an alibi for the 19th person, as soon as I do, you will think up a 20th person and claim that they are the culprit. By repeating this infinitely, you would make it so I kept searching for their alibis for all eternity. I see, I see. Just like a demon king summoning a plague of locusts. I wouldn't expect anything less from Kinzo's grandchild. It looks like you have been gifted with a talent in summoning. In short, it is impossible to continually prove an alibi for the X existing outside of the first 18. How do you like that, Beato? Now that I know we're having a battle with twisted logic, I won't lose.
How foolish. Who do you think I am? I am the Endless Witch, the Infinite Witch. For you to challenge me at infinity is absurd. Having control over infinity means that I am also able to kill infinity.
Alright!
When your 19th person folds, you will call a 20th, and when your 20th person folds, you will call a 21st, and when your 21st person folds and your 22nd person folds, you'll call a 23rd, and a 34th, and a 643,582,235,760 96.7324th. You think you could trifle with me for all eternity? I laugh at infinite regress. The infinite doesn't affect me.
Oh, well then, how will you kill my infinity? Just try and show me. Like this, with a knife. Like Shiki.
I have the power to speak the truth in red.
Here it comes.
When I speak in red, it contains absolutely no illusions. If I say once in red that there are no more than 100 people on this island, you will no longer be permitted to create a 101st person. Come now, battler. What truth shall I tell in red this time? Where shall I strike for the kill and force you into hopelessness? Come show me your usual frightened face. What? Why are you laughing?
I wonder what kind of creepy look I had on my face as I laughed right then. That red sure is scary. Every time it jumps out, I'm driven into the depths of hopelessness. But I had already realized it. There was no need to be unnecessarily afraid of the red.
You've brought out your secret weapon again.
So, what and how will the great Beatrice-sama speak in red this time?
Oh, what do you mean by this? Suddenly looking so relaxed.
Sorry, but I've been waiting for you to take out that blood-red treasured sword. Let's see, what will you proclaim in red this time? You aren't going to say the culprit was one of the 18, are you? Let me warn you, that would be self-destruction, remember? That would be the same as throwing away your own witch theory yourself. A complete resignation. That's right. The red isn't always necessarily to Beato's advantage. On the contrary, if she used it the wrong way, it's dangerous enough that she could bring about her own death. If she used it carelessly and said something which ended up denying herself, that would be exactly the same thing as self-destructing. Of course, it would also be sad and difficult for me to accept if you told me in red that one of the 18 was the culprit. No matter who the culprit actually was, it would surely bring me some tough emotions. But before that, it would mean your defeat. Saying in red that the culprit is a human is equivalent to your proclamation of resignation. If you want to strike me a blow so badly, you're prepared to die at the same time. I think that's a pretty interesting move. However, this battle will end in my victory. Beatrice's red was truly her secret weapon, her treasured blade. The things she spoke in red would become solidified as the truth, and no amount of evidence or counter-arguments could change them. They had cut me down to size many times now, rending in two any supports my heart had to lean on. However, if she used it carelessly, then I could also find a little information about the truth. In the last game, especially during the chapel's locked room trick, I had taken advantage of that, and had once closed her in almost completely. But she was also pretty sly. She had learned from experience, and since then had started using discretion in the timing of the red. This feeling of tension was almost literally like a battle with real swords. This was a battle of high intelligence. No, not of intelligence. It really was twisted logic. This was the world's craziest and worst battle of twisted logic. There you go. You found your way to the truth. So, now it's your move. That's right. To use your Hempel's Raven, first you'll have to confirm in red how many humans there are other than the 18. And after that, if you proclaim in red that none of the people in that group are the culprit, that's right, that might be a fatal wound to me.
I'm surprised that you no longer have even an atom of fear for that red which you feared so much. You're quite sturdy.
Unsheath it. Your treasured blade. Oh shit, he's asking to get pegged right now. A single perfect swing and you might be able to break me this time, who knows?
Interesting. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Agitate her, provoke her. drive her into a corner to make her speak in red. Of course, her red has always cut right through my only threads of hope, but don't be afraid of that. On this island overcome with falsehoods and illusions, the only thing I can trust is the information that she speaks in red. It is my only way across the chasm of hell. Just a single tightrope. Her merciless blood-red blade is the only way I can survive. This isn't just walking on a tightrope, it's literally like walking on the edge of a blade. Of course I'm afraid. In terms of her contrapositive, my victory condition, the denial of the witch, meant that the culprit was a human. But I didn't want to search for the culprit amid the 18. Therefore I held on to a weak point, since I had to deny the witch and the 18 at the same time. Since I had been unable to understand that last time, that was where she had hit me, leaving me tattered and defeated. But that's alright. Let her hit me. Let her attack. No problem. Someone said it once in an old sword fighting movie. That's a good fortress has one and only one intentionally weak point. The enemy would gather there. They would be lured there. And that would be where the actual battle took place. As long as I understand my weak points, and as long as she wants to attack those weak points, it is as if I've induced her to attack there. Carefully judge the distance from your enemy and retreat step by step. Make them draw their sword first. The more she recklessly flourishes that red, the more chances I'll have to strike back. Don't be afraid of the red. Keep the pressure on so that she is forced to refute with the red. No matter how oppressively she speaks in red. Yes, that red itself is the same as fresh blood spurting from her wounds. Come on, what's wrong? First of all, why don't you tell me in red how many people are on this island total? If you don't, your raven can't cut me up.
How surprising that you can be this desperate and yet this difficult. One cannot make light of someone putting their life on the line, no matter what the era. It is no surprise you're Kinzo's grandchild. The more cornered you are, the bolder you become.
Ronove cleared his throat. You appear to be at a standstill. That black tea I worked so hard to make is getting cold, milady. Ronove, who was supposed to be her ally, roguishly rushed her next move. Beato smiled back, probably intending to demonstrate that she was still relaxed, but she couldn't hide the sweat building up on her forehead. By now she had completely lost that relaxedness which had allowed her to turn up her nose at the worthless opponent. Of course, she probably wasn't really cornered by something like this. She was just being cautious. Until now, I had been inexperienced. I didn't have a good grasp on how to fight, and I was underpowered as an opponent. However, now that we had reached the third game, she realized that I was starting to become skilled, as she had grown more cautious, thinking every move over carefully. Sure, that's just fine, Beatrice, and sorry to have kept you waiting. Are you happy now? Now things are starting to get interesting, right?
Battler.
I want to foop my fingers around his foop. This isn't going anywhere. Then should I just drive right in and go with the usual?
Oh? The usual, you say? Then by all means. If I don't hear that, I guess I just won't get the sense that we've started.
The first move was mine. Here I come, Beato. Helicopter dick noises. Repetition requested. There are only 18 people on this island. If I hear you say this in red, I'll have no choice but to doubt one of the 18. Since it could no longer be the work of a 19th person, all doors would be closed to me. But I believe that the culprit is definitely not one of the 18. There's no way that any of those 18 could commit such brutal murders. I'll say it again, repetition requested. There are only 18 people on this island.
I decline. I won't say why. Whew!
I had avoided what would have been the worst red for me. If she had repeated that, I would have been faced with those two worst choices of accepting the witch or suspecting one of the 18, like last time all over again. But Beato had not proclaimed my ultimate and greatest weakness in red. She had declined to repeat it, even though there was no reason why she shouldn't have struck, even though it was a weakness she should have been drooling at. She hadn't sliced me up with red by using that move, which should have been as good as forking a rook and the king. This was a big sign of my advantage. That's right. The culprit isn't one of the 18 people. I won't doubt anyone. And since the culprit isn't a witch either, it means that a 19th person exists on this island. And that's you. A person who, as grandfather's mistress of 30 years, has been living secretly in a hidden mansion in the forest for a long, long time. The human Beatrice. That's right. You aren't a witch or anything like that. You're just a human. Humans are just human. They come into this world with dreams and aspirations. They want it all, and they try to use the power of the earth and power of the spirit. You are right.
Did you just call me the endless witch who has lived for over 1,000 years, a mere human?
For a while, Beatrice continued to laugh unpleasantly, gloating or maybe spiteful. Are you ready? I'll keep going. Again, repetition requested. There are at least 19 people on this island. Beatrice fell silent once again. The feeling that confirming the number of humans on this island might possibly stand to give her some large disadvantage was probably making her extremely cautious. The red had already become a foothold for my counterattack. With that in mind, the red had become a risk for the witch. But if she couldn't repeat this, her Hempel's Raven wouldn't work. In order to break my devil's proof, first the existence of a number of people outside the 18 needed to be confirmed in red. That's right, she couldn't break the existence of a 19th person unless she used red. I had closed Beato in, giving her no choice but to speak in red. There really was a way to fight in this witch's game. It's alright to decline. If you can't say it in red, then that will mean the total number of people on this island will be 18 plus X. That X is a pretty huge piece to allow me to have on the first move, isn't it? After all, from then on, all of the tricks with the basis it was impossible for any of the 18 will become explainable with the human X outside of the 18 people. This is a huge piece that can break open any locked room, hinging on everyone having an alibi. It was just like a bishop in chess, which can cut a thin line through the enemy forces as long as there's a slight gap. It only exerts an effect over squares of the same color, but it has a great ability to control the board. Looked like Beato also well understood her current plight. She couldn't just let an important piece go, especially this close to the beginning of the game. If she pulled out her red treasured sword, it wouldn't be... But Beato was completely aware that I was expecting it. She was afraid that a careless red truth might end up strangling her own neck. Because, in the first place, a witch was something which shouldn't be denied in red. Believe. Don't doubt. Witches don't exist. Something like that can't exist in this world. They can only exist in the cracks in reality. They are fragile existences, curled up in these cracks, frantically trying to protect themselves from the brutal winds of truth, and they can only barely exist like a mirage by surviving on falsehoods and fantasy. Damn, he really got it out for me. In other words, the red, which only witches can use, is the very reality by which they risk denying themselves. The more they brandish their red words, the more they begin to lose, bit by bit, that crack in reality inside which they can endure. That is why they don't want, through the red, to carelessly lose that crack in reality which is based on fuzzy information, or in other words, fantasy. This is assuming that the witch is not leading you into this because she's trying to prove that she's not a witch. Because they understand that they would be gradually cornering themselves. Of course, she would never admit it, because if she did, it would be the same as admitting that she is something that can't exist in this world, like an imaginary number. Don't be afraid, stay strong. She knows this deep down and better than anyone, that her red treasured sword can't easily be used without considerable resolve. What's wrong? I'll say it again. Repetition requested. There are at least 19 people on this island.
I decline.
At the end of a long, long time spent deliberating, letting a single deep breath escape, she quietly proclaimed her refusal. I had thought that she'd use it, but Beato refused to speak in red, even though it would cost her victory in the opening part of the game. You declined, yes? Which means that from now on, I can create as many fictional character X's outside of the 18 as I want?
Do as you wish. I have declined your repetition. Isn't that enough for now? The reason I declined was... No, I will not reveal that for now. You will know soon in any case.
Still acting tough, I see.
Red that I deliberately don't use is in itself a fitting use of red. You called it my red treasured sword. A pleasant analogy. I will use it too. A treasured sword is at its best when it is sheathed. In fact, there are times it can still instill even more fear because it is sheathed.
That's right. As I fight, I always have to keep in mind when you might turn everything over with those red words. It's some pretty serious pressure. And there are times when having a repetition decline makes things harder for me. Those times I can't tell whether you can't repeat because my guess was right, or whether you're just misleading me and letting me think whatever I want. In that sense, yes, I see, a sheathed treasured sword.
What does it matter? If I'm going to push you off a cliff anyway, I might as well let you climb a little higher first. We still have barely begun. Much is left to come. I'll resign from this challenge. Go ahead and get drunk on your faint victory for now. Only for now.
Golden Reach. They really went at it. That bitter comment did in fact appear to have marked the end of the game's opening battle. Even so, I couldn't relax my guard at all. I was unable to relax my feelings of tension until I was greeted by the sound of Ronobe's applause.
Spectacular, Battler-sama. I suppose we could say that this game has started with at least the opening unfolding to your advantage.
No idea. I still don't know whether this piece was something I tore from her with my own hands or whether she guided me into taking it. After all, knowing you, you probably know that I'm being led into a trap and that clapping is just a barefaced lie, right?
How could you think that? I am innocently celebrating your ability that has enabled you to take one shot at Milady, though granted it is only the beginning. After all, Milady is a person who is quick to become arrogant. I believe that a little simulation such as that makes for a good medicine every once in a while.
This butler of yours sure has a vicious tongue.
Isn't that so? Sometimes he enrages even me.
My, how incredibly rude of me. Well then, Milady, Battler-sama, would you care for some more black tea? The game has only barely begun. Please, leave any tea or pastries that might adorn this game to me. Please do not hesitate to advance further in the game.
I will. Let's move forward. Now is when it really starts.
Very well. Let us advance the clock. Ronove, black tea, please.
Certainly. What about a cookie?
No need. Give it to Beelzebub to keep her happy. Remain silent for now.
While listening to the sound of the demon butler pouring tea, the witch closed her eyes slightly and fell into silence. For some time she was deeply lost in thought, but eventually a roguish glint came into her eyes.
Very well. Why don't I inform you now why I declined to speak in red for the first move?
What? Bring it on. Show me what you got.
It really is a big piece that you'd hate to miss. It may be hasty, but allow me to move. I won't use red, but from here on Rosa will explain on my behalf. Listen.
Interesting. I think that's where we're going to close it here. Yep, Ava agrees. Perfect. Alright, gang. This was fun. Let's try to make this happen again this week. I probably won't do it quite so early because there was like probably the fewest live viewers I've had for one of these. Not that they get a lot of them. It's really more of a VOD thing, as I said to Bert on the phone just a minute ago. But every time I do it, somebody randomly sends me like $25 on Venmo, and so I feel like it's worth it. I have fun. Ellen has fun. Zydias and Denakori and Brian were all here. Shade popped in. CC was here. This was a very argument dumping stream, but that's okay. Sometimes it'd be like that. Yeah, I figure I thought that was most of what this game would be, actually. I thought it was going to be mostly stuff like that. So I'm actually, I mean, I don't mind it, but I am glad that it's not all that, you know. Alright. I'll see y'all later today, probably.